Hi everybody, this is Richard White, and today we're going to see how you can use external files in Python to store data persistently. When you're first learning Python, you typically learn how to write programs that process data. You do numeric calculations, you analyze text, but at some point you'll want your programs to keep track of data and remember it even when the program isn't running. If you've written a game program, for example, you might want to keep track of high scores so that players can see their progress over time. Today I'm going to write a real quick contacts manager program, an address program that's going to keep track of the people that I know, their names, their email addresses, and their phone numbers. I'm going to write that real quickly here. You may have seen us writing this program before. I'm going to write that real quickly here, and then we'll use that as a context for our conversation on storing data in external files. So for my development environment on my laptop, I have a text editor set up on the left side of the screen here. I'm using BBEdit to edit my program. I'm going to be writing this in Python 3, which has a slightly different syntax from Python 2. So if you get any kind of eval errors when running this program, it may be because you're using Python 2 instead of Python 3. And on the right side of my window here, I have a terminal window set up. This is where I'll actually be running the program and playing around with Python when I have some commands I want to check out. And you can see over on the far right here, I've left a little bit of space here. This is my desktop, and there's my contacts.py file that I'm going to be editing here. I've left this open here so that we can use it. We'll be using that a little bit later on. But let me go ahead and write my program now, my initial contacts.py program very quickly. So in this program, the general idea is that I'm going to be using a list of friends to keep track of my friends, and I'll be able to add friends to that list and search for my friends and print them all out. So let me start out, as I always do, by defining a main program here. I'll just print out Contacts Manager so that I can see what's going on. I'm going to be testing as I go, and down here at the bottom, let me just call the main program here. If I don't have that main in there, I'll never call that main function. So let me save that and run that program real quickly and see how it works. And it looks like it's printing out Contacts Manager. That's fantastic. So let me go back over here and build in a little bit more in my program. I think I'm going to set it up as a kind of a menu-driven thing. I am going to be keeping track of all my friends in this list called friends. So let me initialize that list. First of all here, I'll write a little comment to myself. Initialize friends list. And I'll just start with an empty list each time here. And then I'm going to set up a little menu here. People are going to be entering their choice in here. So I'm going to say choice starts out as a value of 0. I'm going to have a 1, 2, and a 3 kind of thing going on here. Let's try this. While choice is not equal to 4, that'll be the fourth one that we have there. I'm going to be doing things. I'm going to be printing out their options here. And option 1 that they can choose is they can add a friend. And option 2 that they can choose is they can look up a friend. Do a little search there. Option 3 is going to be display all friends. And option 4 is going to be to quit. That'll be nice. That'll be a nice little menu that'll print out every time. And so as long as their choice is not equal to 4, as long as they've got a 1, 2, or 3, or some other value, we're going to go through this loop. So I guess I need to have them enter their choice here. Choice is going to be equal to whatever it is that they input. I'm going to take that input, which in Python 3 is a string value, and convert it to a numeric value by using the eval function there. And you can see that I preloaded this with a 0 so I could get past this while loop here. So presumably they've entered a choice here by the time I get down here. And if their choice equals 1, then I'm going to be adding a friend. And I'm just going to put a little note in here for right now, and I'll expand this in a moment. If it's not 1, if choice is equal to 2, I'm going to be saying look up a friend. I'll be doing that. And I'll expand that again a little bit later on. If the choice is equal to 3, then I know we're going to be displaying all friends. And if choice is equal to Well, I guess if it's not equal to 4, if it's equal to 4, what am I going to do? If it's equal to 4, I'm going to print quitting program, because at that point we're going to quit the program. We're going to bail out of this program. And also I'll just print that I'm going to be doing that. And if it's none of those, I'm going to have to say else print invalid response, just to let them know they made a mistake. So that's going to go through, and if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, it'll do all those things. I'll keep on going through until they do enter a 4, and at that point they're going to end the program. I'll say quitting program. And so when I fall out of this loop at the very bottom down here, the last thing I'll do here is I'll just say print program terminated, just to let them know that the program's all done. So there's my while loop that's all set up. Let me, it doesn't actually do anything, but let me just check and make sure that my menu is working the way it's supposed to. So I'm running contacts.py and it's giving me those options. And if I add a friend, I'm going to have some stuff that adds a friend. If I look up a friend, I'll put that in a few minutes. If I put in a 6, it's going to say that's an invalid response. That's good. It's catching that. And if I put in a 4 to quit, it says quitting program, program terminated, and then I'm done. That's good. That's good. I like that. I like the way that's all set up there. I think it's going to be working just fine here. Of course, I have to do all the stuff here. So let's fill in these pieces here now. So if I'm adding a friend, the way I'm going to do that is I need to append to my friends list up here. I made this empty list. I'm going to append to my friends list the name and the email and the phone number for a person, or maybe I'll just leave it as name and email right now. Now phone number, because we need to text people. So let's get this. Name is going to be equal to input, enter name. And so whatever they type in is going to go into that value name. Email is going to be equal to enter email. So I'm getting input from the user as we're adding this friend here. And phone is going to be equal to input, enter phone. And once I've got those things, I'm going to add this new friend to my list. I'm going to append that person. I'm actually going to append it as a list. So I'm going to make a list of the name and the email and the phone. And I'm going to append that list to friends. So friends is actually going to be a list of these lists, of these name, email, phone number lists, where each small list here describes a friend there. And that's all I need to do for adding a friend. How do I display all my friends? Let's run down here. Displaying all the friends, how am I going to do that? One of the ways I can do that is certainly to say for I in range, length of the friends list. This is using an index variable. It's called an index variable because it has a value, an index from 0 all the way up to just below the length of friends. So if I have 10 friends, I is going to run from 0 to 9. That is all the friends. And for each one of those, I'm going to print friends sub I. That's one way of doing that, printing out all those friends there. Let's run this program and double check and see how it's working so far. Just want to run that and see what happens. I just saved it, so let's run it. I'm going to add a friend. I'm going to add myself to the list. Email rwhite@crashwhite.com. Sure. And phone, who cares? And I'm going to add one more friend, my friend David. And now if I display all my friends, you can see that it's going through and it's listing all those friends. Each friend is a list there with those items in it. It doesn't look very pretty. I can worry about that a little bit later on. But that's working more or less the way I want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and quit that program. Cool. What if I want to look up a friend? If I want to look up a friend, the way I can do that is I guess I can say data is equal to input, enter search term. And if somebody then, whatever that, I'll call it keyword. Sure, I'll call it keyword. And I'm going to go through all my friends and look for that keyword. And there's a few ways we can do this. We used an index loop down here. You can also use, there's another kind of loop, some people call it a for each loop. You can say for friend in friends, this is also going to go through every single friend in the list. We can do this in Python because this friends lists are what are called iterables in Python. And so each time I go through this loop, friend is going to take on the value of the next item in that friends list. And then I can say if keyword in friend. I'll look through that list, and if it is, then I'm just going to print out that particular friend. Otherwise, I won't do anything. Let's see how that works. That's a little bit interesting. Let's see how that works. I'm going to go ahead and run that and see what happens. You know, when I try and display all my friends here, I don't have any friends anymore. I've lost all the data that I've entered before, the Richard and the David from before. That's why in this exercise, in just a few moments, we're going to begin storing that information in an external file. So let me add real quickly friends here. Here's Richard, and I'll add in my friend Melissa, and we don't care. And so what if I want to look up a friend now? Look up a friend, enter search term, I'll look up Melissa. And it's going to find Melissa in that list there. I could also look up by Melissa's email, this AFD. Look up a friend, enter a search term, AFD, and it found Melissa there as well. So it looks like it's working just about as it should, that whole search feature. So this is great. This is a wonderful little program. The only thing it's missing right now is that ability to save data over time. This ability to save the state of a program's data is called persistence, and there are a few different ways that you can do this. A large, complex program that needed to manage lots of data would probably use a database to manage that information. SQLite and MySQL or MySQL are two common database formats that work well with Python. And designing your databases, that's a really interesting subject all in itself, but it's well beyond what we're going to be doing in our simple program, so we'll save that for another time. A much simpler way of storing information is in a flat file database, which is just a simple text file formatted in a way that we can easily read and write information. One common type of flat file database is the comma-separated value, or CSV file, where each bit of information in our record, say for a friend, is separated from the others by a comma. So we would have name, comma, email, comma, phone. And that's the strategy that we're going to end up using in this particular program. I should mention really quickly that Python has modules that can help you manage CSV files really nicely, but we're not going to take advantage of those in this tutorial because we're trying to learn just the basics on external files. Also, there are other ways that you can store data in Python programs. If you want data persistence for more complex sets of data, things like objects, you should probably check out the pickle and shelve modules. The pickle operation in particular is very good for dumping objects to an external binary file where they can be saved until they are loaded into the program at a later time for use. Pickling is a great strategy for implementing persistence, but we're going to stick with CSV for this activity, basically for two reasons. One, those comma-separated value files where we store information as text, they're super easy to use, so other programs can use that file as well. Also, we want to be easily able to see that CSV file so we can confirm how everything's working. And if it's a binary file, we wouldn't be able to do that. So the text file is going to work perfectly for us. So to allow our program to save data to a file, we just need a few extra lines here at the bottom of our program. And we'll show you there's basically three steps that you need to follow. So instead of this program terminated, I'm going to replace that line with these steps here, these three steps. So first of all, you need to set up a pointer to that file that you're writing out to. So I'm going to use the identifier out file. I'm just going to call this a variable name. Out file is going to be equal to, and we need to open up the file that we're going to be writing to. Since I'm calling the program contacts.py, I think I'll probably write this to contacts.txt. And you also need, there's a second parameter you have to put in here. You also have to say R, which indicates that we're going to be, W, which indicates that we're going to be writing to that file, W for writing. And so this, again, sets up a pointer here. Out file is going to be a reference to this external file that we're going to be sending data to. And then what we need to do is we need to go through every single friend in our list. So again, I'm going to use one of those lists, one of those for each loops here for friend in friends. For every friend that I have in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that list. Remember, friend here, the individual friend, is a list of the name, email, and phone number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write that to outfile, outfile.write, and I'm going to need to take that list, that friend list, and join it together using commas. So the syntax for that is quote, comma, quote, join, and then the friend list here, not the big friends list, the little friend. So that's going to take the name, email, and phone number for each of my friends, join them all together, convert them from that list to a string where each of those values in the list is separated by a comma. I'm also going to add one more thing to that, because if I just send that out there, it's going to be written into the file, but we're going to use separate lines, one line for each of our friends here. So I'm going to add the new line character, which has a \n that's indicated by a \n, not a /, a \n, and that's going to be written out then to that contacts.txt file. So this is going to create a line. Once again, it's going to take the name, email, and address for any friend, each friend in turn, join the items in that list together with commas, add a new line character at the end, and then write that line to contacts.txt. And then finally, once we've gone through that loop and done that with all our friends, the last step you need to be able to do is close that out file. So this is pretty straightforward. If you haven't done this before, it may look a little bit strange, but it's a very straightforward series of steps that you do. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to run it over here, and then we'll see what happens. We'll see how this works here. So I'm running this program. I'm going to add a friend. We've done this before. rwhite@gmail.com. Sure. That's not me, by the way, so don't send email there. Here, I'll put my real one in there. And phone, blah, blah, blah. And I'll put Melissa in there as well. And let's make sure they're all there, displaying all our friends. There's our list of friends. And let me go ahead and quit. Now what's going to happen is when we call quit, we're going to quit the program, and we're going to pop out, and we'll execute these lines of code down here. And you can see one of the first things that's going to happen, we're going to create that out file. We're going to open contacts.txt. What this does is, if it's not there, it's going to create that file for writing into. If it is there, it's going to write over whatever was in that file. So let's see what happens when I hit return here in my program. Quitting program, and did you see what happened up here? I now have a contacts.txt file. And let me double click that and open that so we can see what's in there. And just what we were hoping would happen, yes, there's the name, the email, the phone number, name, email, phone number, those items separated by commas because it's comma separated value, CSV, and one record, one friend to a line. This is perfect. This is just what we were hoping would happen. So this is how we save that data. I'm going to make a little note to myself. Save data to external file. This is awesome. Now I've got a little bit of a problem. There's only one thing left. A little bit of a problem here, because when I run this again, let me run Python contacts and look at all my friends. I have no more friends. I've saved my friends to this file, but when I run the program, I also need to be able to load the information from that file back up into my program. So that's the last little thing that we're going to figure out here. All right, so let's go back up to the top of the program, because the way we're going to do this is at the beginning, instead of initializing the friends list to an empty list every time, I need to read the information from that contacts file and put it in there. So I'm still going to be initializing a friends list, but I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. We're going to basically do the reverse of the process, or a similar kind of process. Instead of writing to the file, running through every friend and writing to the file, we're going to read from the file and bring that into our friends list. So the way we're going to do that, I actually do need to start out with an empty list here. And then what I'm going to do is, instead of setting up an out file pointer, I'm going to set up an in file pointer. And we're going to do as before, open contacts.txt. And we're going to be opening it up not for writing, but for reading now, R for read. And what that's going to do is a couple of things. It's going to look for this context.txt file, and when it finds it, it's going to set it up so that anytime I call in file, I'll be reading information from that. If that file doesn't exist, we're going to get an error message, but we'll figure out how to deal with that in just a few moments. All right, so there's a few ways that you can go through and get information from the in file. This is the way I'm choosing to do it here. I'm going to read from that in file one line using the read line method there. So get that in file, read one line from it, and store it in a variable called line. And again, there are other ways to do this, but this is the way I'm doing it for this one here. And as long as I've got information there, as long as I have line information that I read from that in file, then I'm going to take that line and I'm going to append it to my friends list. Here's my friends list. A little bit of a trick here though. Remember that line of text, that's not what I'm keeping track of in my friends here. What I'm doing is I've got a list, a little name, email, phone number list that is being held in friends there. So I can't just take the line straight as it is and append it in. I can't just do that. First of all, it's got that new line character at the end, so I'm going to have to strip off on the right side of the line that new line character. And so this command here, rstrip, strips from the right line, or the right side of that line, that new line character. And even once I've done that, once I've got my comma separated values there, I don't want comma separated values. I want to put those all together into a list. So I'm going to use the opposite of the join method that we used before. I'm going to use the split method here, which basically takes that comma, everything, it's going to use the comma as the delimiter, as the separator value. And so name, comma, email, comma, phone, those three items are going to be joined into a list. The split operation here takes those guys and makes a list out of them. And then I'm going to append that list to my friends list. So that'll create the list of lists that I'm looking for. It'll do that anyway for the first line. Then what I have to do is I have to say, well, let me try and get another line in there. I'll try to read another line. And as long as I'm getting new lines read in here, as long as line has a value, I'll continue to loop through here and append to the friends list. But once I run out of lines, once there are no more lines in that text file, then I'm going to close that in file there. That's going to read all those values in. That's how I'm going to initialize the friends list. So let's see how that works. I'm going to run that, I'm going to save that, and then I'll run this and we'll see how it works. Remember what we have in contacts.txt here. We have Richard and Melissa. So let's run this and see what happens. I'm going to display all my friends. First of all, we'll see if they all came in. Displaying all my friends. There's Richard and there's Melissa displayed as a list of lists, just as before. We really do need to fix that up, but it's looking pretty good. Let me add one more friend in here. Let me add in David. And here's his information. Display all the friends. Now I have Richard, Melissa, and David in there. That's awesome. If I quit, hopefully those all got written out. Let me double check. Did they all get written out? There's David added into that contacts.txt file. So that's working as it should. And what happens if I run the program then one more time? If I display all friends, it still has David listed in there. So this is working just as it should. I've got an external text file that's storing the information from my program. Even when my program ends, it saves it in there and I can bring it back in then the next time I start up the program. So that's amazing. One last thing we have to fix. If this contacts.txt file, if that file doesn't exist, if I delete that file, when I run this program, I've got a little bit of a problem because what's going to happen is it's going to try to open that contacts.txt file and it doesn't exist there. I'm getting a file not found error. So what we're going to do, that's because I'm saying open up this file and it's not here. When I try to look for that file, it's just not there. So we're going to do one more little modification here. It's amazing. We're going to use the try except feature here in Python. This is error trapping. So we're going to try to do all these things. And I'm going to indent all these guys. We're going to try to do all these things. Let's shove this over just a little bit. And if I can do all those things, that's going to be awesome. It's going to work just as it should. It'll be amazing. But what if it doesn't? What if we run into a problem? We'll do this stuff except if there's some sort of problem, and then we'll try to deal with that problem in here. Specifically, the problem we're going to look for is a file not found error. So I'm going to put that in there just as it's written there, except if I get a file not found error, except file not found error. And if that happens, colon, what am I going to do? If I blow up there and can't find that, don't crash the program. Just say, okay, fine. Apparently we don't have anything that we can read from, so we're just going to set up an empty friends list and we'll build the list from there. Maybe I'll even put a nice little message in here. I'll say print previous data not found, or I'll be really informative here. Contacts.txt file not found. Print starting new address book. There. I'll save that and let's run this and see what happens. Now I don't have that file there. It's not there. So let me run Python. See what happens. Contacts.txt file not found. Starting new address book. Add a friend. Richard. Looking very good. If I quit, that contacts.txt file is maintained there, and now we're all set to go. This is working just as it should. So we've seen how this simple little contacts manager program can use an external text file to maintain persistent data in the form of a CSV file in Python. Thanks for watching.